Okay, Mike, let's
Yes.
talk about Native American spirituality. How would you
Okay.
start out? Like like for somebody who has no knowledge of Native Americans, how do they, what is the worldview? What's the spirit world to them and all that?
I think it might be best generalized and summarized in the statement, which actually comes from the Lakota Dakota people, that says we are all related.
Yeah.
Mitake Oyasin, and that's not native pronunciation, but that's my best approximation of it. That we in that, I think maybe from Western eyes is often viewed as meaning
Just people.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
But the native view takes that beyond to what we call animals, plants, and even what Western society looks at as non-living, stones, rocks, mountains, forces of nature like wind and so forth. So there's a very unified way of looking at everything. Many of the original 500 or more native languages have or had no word for religion, for example, because that is not something that is split out. The worldview is integrated with everyday life. It's integrated with what you do. It's integrated with how you view yourself, other people, and it's how there's not this big line between the secular and the sacred.
Right.
They're one thing. So I guess that's the best way. I don't know if that's.
Let's go into a detail.
Yeah,
then.
go ahead.
What about the number 4?
Oh, well, for many of us, including me as a Cherokee, this is one of the important or sacred numbers. I do a lecture. Sometimes I'm asked to do a lecture that I've created on Native spirituality, and I use the symbol of the medicine wheel, which is a circle and then has the 4 cardinal directions, and each of those directions there are different teachings, there are different animals, there are different times of day, there are different seasons and so forth.
Yep.
So this is our way of, again, although we see everything is unified, it doesn't keep us from organizing it and giving each its own place and its own importance and its own special, we say teachings, because I guess that's the other thing maybe where we would depart from Western spiritual religious tradition. The Western people always talk about the book, and I think for Native people, nature is our book.
Right.
We look at the qualities of the animals. We look at dogs to understand loyalty. We look at eagle to understand having sharp vision and seeing the big picture.
Right.
The eagle
Perspective. Yeah.
perspective.
Yeah.
We look at the humble mouse to look at to understand the importance of paying attention to details in certain matters and looking at things up close.
Right.
And those are just a few examples.
Like bravery and
Yes, I mean you could go on, and of course, but a lot of our science too, and people are sometimes surprised to hear people talk about native science. It's integrated with this worldview as well, and it's based largely on observation.
Right.
And so we have discovered, living here for 30, maybe 50,000 years, we've discovered uses for different plants and so forth. How did we discover those? We were watching animals.
Right.
Who, we saw an animal who was sick in a certain way, and then it ate this herb, or somebody did, one of our ancestors did, and then
learn from that.
right,
Yeah.
then the animal got better.
One thing when I came about an understanding of this oneness was the division between the European view and the native view in terms of anthropocentrism versus ecocentrism.
Ah.
And anthropocentrism means man-centered,
Right.
like the West, and then
Right.
we look at it like you were saying with religion and separating the book and all that and separate
Right.
out. And ecocentrism, which is you're part of nature. We're
Right.
not separate from the
Exactly.
natural world.
The classic example of that for me is when Western people hear natives talk about Mother Earth.
Yeah.
They think it's like the way they talk about Mother Nature as a symbol. We don't mean it that way. We see the earth as literally our mother. I mean,
Right.
and if you think about it, I mean, everything that allows you and I to be here right now, to be alive, is from that. We could not be alive were it not for the things that grow from, spring from, like water and so forth, our mother. And we feel that emotional connection,
Right.
and we feel that responsibility.
Exactly. Hence the respect that is paid for nature.
Right.
And the violation of that by the Western outlook.
It's so interesting to me because, of course, there was a lot of diseases that preceded the actual physical presence of European people in going from east to west. And so, in some cases, by the time they got here, they found these pristine forests. At first they thought nobody even lived here, but it was clean. It was groomed like a garden. These huge forests, but no underbrush. No, there were these clean streams and so forth. And yet, for tens of thousands of years, millions of people had been living here. And so that, if nothing else, can show you an example of that ethic. It's that result, that we had this land, we were living on it, and we kept it in pretty good shape for quite a long time.
Right.